There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
By Christmas of 1996, the horror genre was in a bit of a funk. Now, of course, every now and then a decent movie would come along, like From Dusk Till Dawn, and Silence of the Lambs had swept the Oscars only a few years before. But almost everything else that was coming out was either a rip-off of something or a sequel in a series. By 1996, we had seen 9 Friday the 13ths, 8 Amityville Horrors, 7 Nightmares on Elm Street, 6 Halloweens, 5 Puppet Masters, 4 Texas Chainsaw Massacres, 3 Leprechauns, 2 Candymen. In fact, one of the only things we hadn't seen a horror movie based on was A Partridge in a Pear Tree. And though there were a ton of them coming out, it had been a while since a slasher movie had taken the world by storm. All of that would change, however, on December the 20th, 1996, with the release of Wes Craven's Scream. So today we're going to take a look at Craven's second horror masterpiece and talk about what makes it so special and why it was able to breathe new life into a tired genre. But before we do, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. We're trying hard to hit 250 subscribers by the end of the year, and that is only possible with your help. With that being said, and a slight spoiler warning in place, let's get into the rest of the video. Kevin Williamson, the man who would go on to create Dawson's Creek, wrote the script that would become the movie Scream after being inspired by a 1994 episode of the news magazine TV show Turning Point, an episode focusing on a serial killer named Danny Rolling who had killed a number of college students in Gainesville, Florida. The script was titled Scary Movie, and it differed from other horror movies of the day by having its characters be familiar with all of the tropes and cliches that went along with horror. Hollywood executives loved the screenplay, and the script became so popular that it started a bidding war among several studios. It was eventually purchased by Miramax to be released under their new label Dimension Films. Kevin Williamson pulled in a whopping $400,000 for his script. Williamson's story was violent and scary, but also full of dark humor. So when deciding who to hire to direct, Wes Craven was an easy choice. I mean, think about it. He had created the king of horror one-liners, Freddy Krueger. Who better to help Scary Movie walk the fine line between funny and frightening? But wanting someone for a job and getting someone for a job isn't always the same thing. Wes Craven turned down the movie multiple times at first, and it wasn't until Drew Barrymore signed on to play Sidney Prescott, the lead of the film, that Craven thought Scary Movie could be more than an average horror movie. With a big star like Drew Barrymore in the lead role, everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. But scheduling conflicts led to Barrymore having to step down from that part and into a smaller role. At first, this could have seemed like a problem, but Craven and the executives instead crafted it into one of the biggest surprises for viewers at the time. In the tradition of Psycho, they would kill off their biggest star early in the movie, leading the audience to believe that no one was safe. Wes Craven would look to television to replace his leading lady. Neve Campbell, one of the stars of the TV show Party of Five, was asked to audition for the part of Sidney. She was hesitant at first, as she had just finished working on another horror movie, The Craft. But after auditioning, she took the part, mostly because it would serve as her first time in the leading role. With the new lead in place, it was time to get the rest of the cast in order. Nosy news reporter Gail Weathers would be played by Courtney Cox, who was riding high on the popularity of the TV show Friends. She was drawn to the part because she liked the idea of playing a jerk, since it went against the nice image that she had garnered from her work on Friends. Sidney's best friend, Tatum Riley, would be played by Rose McGowan, who was coming off of the movie The Doom Generation. Tatum's brother, the bumbling police deputy Dewey Riley, was played by David Arquette. Arquette had originally come in to read for the part of Billy Loomis, Sidney's boyfriend, but after looking at the script, had asked to audition for the part of Dewey instead. And although he didn't fit the description of the character in the script, Wes Craven liked the way that he played the part and signed him to the role. The part of Sidney's boyfriend, Billy Loomis, would eventually be played by actor Skeet Ulrich. His casting is notable because of his striking resemblance to Johnny Depp, who himself had had his big breakout role on Wes Craven's earlier hit, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Matthew Lillard was cast as Billy's best friend, Stu, who was also Tatum's boyfriend. The funny thing is that Lillard didn't even go to the audition to try to get a part. He was only there to support his at-the-time girlfriend. When one of the casting directors saw him in the waiting room, they asked him to audition, and he got the part. Jamie Kennedy played the movie-obsessed Randy, the last of our main group of characters. They were also able to get some well-known actors for some supporting roles, with Henry Winkler as Principal Himbley, E. Earl Brown as Kenny Jones, Linda Blair in a cameo as a TV reporter, and Liev Schreiber as Cotton Weary, a character who would become much more important in the sequels. And though he didn't appear on screen, Roger L. Jackson probably left the biggest impression on viewers by providing the iconic voice of the killer, Ghostface. The film was shot between April 15th and June 8th of 1996, and at some point before the movie's release, the title was officially changed from Scary Movie to Scream, though the original title would be used for a parody of Scream just a few years later. The movie was released on December 20th, 1996, an unusual time for a horror movie to come out, given that most people go to the theater in late December to enjoy holiday films and family movies. Scream's opening weekend was underwhelming, bringing in only $6 million on its $15 million budget, and with this low return, it made the studio think that maybe they had made a mistake in choosing this release date. But in its second weekend, Scream would make over $9 million, increasing its weekend box office, something that rarely happens. And it would continue to deliver good numbers, finishing with a domestic total of almost $100 million and a worldwide box office gross of $173 million. The movie would go on to win a number of awards at the International Horror Guild and Saturn Awards, but most importantly, would win the Best Movie Award at the 1997 MTV Movie Awards. Scream's success meant that a return of Ghostface was inevitable, and it would spawn 3 sequels, with a 4th coming out this January, along with the TV show that aired on MTV and VH1. So what helped make Scream such a big deal when it came out? Well, first and foremost, it was a good movie. It had an engaging story that at the time was not just a complete retread of things people had seen before. The movie featured a lot of suspense that you would want to come from a horror movie, but at the same time had lots of levity to keep people laughing and not get too freaked out. There were setups and payoffs, surprises and twists, and a genuine mystery that had people wondering who the killer might be. And on top of a good story, it had likable and unique characters. At this time, it was not rare for the people in horror movies to just be seen as cannon fodder, people you were ready to watch the killer come along and knock off. In Scream, you enjoyed the characters and you didn't want them to die because that meant they weren't going to be in the movie anymore. Not only were the characters written well, but they were also acted well. Now, of course, there are some moments that maybe haven't aged the best, but it's still fun to see these characters interact on the screen. It's important to remember that Scream wasn't just a success when it comes to the general audience, but also to the horror audience as well. Scream showed up and was able to deliver something that doesn't happen very often: a new horror icon. You might not know that his name is Ghostface, but when you see the mask, you know that it's from the movie Scream. With its big eyes and open mouth, it stands up there with the hockey mask of Jason or the sweater and hat of Freddy Krueger as an iconic look. A good horror villain should also have an iconic weapon. Jason has his machete, Leatherface has a chainsaw, Freddy Krueger has his knife glove, and Ghostface would join the likes of Michael Myers and Chucky by wielding a knife. And then, as mentioned before, he has his iconic voice.
I'm afraid that was a wrong answer.
Even though the identity of Ghostface might change from movie to movie, the voice remains the same because the people who make these movies know it's not Scream unless you have Roger L. Jackson. And though the first Scream isn't heavy on the kill count, it does have a couple memorable kills. The opening sequence with Casey and Steve is one for the history books and sets the tone for the rest of the movie. And though I think it looks super goofy today, I cannot ignore the fact that Tatum getting killed by the garage door is very memorable. If you look at the big picture, things haven't really changed that much since the mid-90s. You look around at all the movies coming out today, and what do you see? Remakes and sequels. But don't get discouraged just because things are starting to look familiar. Who knows when the next horror movie is going to show up to shake things up? With the likes of new directors like Jordan Peele working magic in horror today, I think it's safe to say that we'll never be too far away from somebody breathing new life into this genre that is so fun to watch. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us reach that 250 subscriber goal. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, take care. You're awesome, and we'll see you then.